content of this. And the manuscript is a series of stanzas with different verses. She used the word shloka, which is Sanskrit for verses. And she said, I translated some of the stanzas. She said somewhere I left off like 60 stanzas. And not necessarily all the verses or shlokas in each stanza, but she did a kind of summary for whatever can be understood, she said, at this time. There are many things that the stanzas refer to that, she says, there were at the beginning of the creation of our planet, the formation of our planet, there were many elements, chemical elements that she says don't exist any longer. I don't think this is something that scientists know or have discovered, because how do you know what is not there any longer? But she says that in the stanzas there are references to many things that they don't exist, and it would be very difficult to understand what they mean. But she says the stanzas form a kind of equation, she says, a formula, which describes the main stages of manifestation, as Michelle mentioned, not only of the cosmos, but also of the human mind and the human being. And Blavatsky and her teachers have given some examples of how this is, how you can see the same patterns, the same stages. So what I did in the book is the stanzas are filled with technical concepts and words that she left untranslated because she said there are no good English words for that. But the problem is that you can barely make sense of what a verse says because it may have 3 Sanskrit words, or from other languages. There is a stanza that she's using the Chinese translation, translating from the Chinese version of the stanzas. She said the stanzas are written originally in a language that is unknown, an ancient language before Sanskrit. But there are some versions, some translations into Sanskrit and Chinese that her adept teachers have. So what I did here is to try to translate all terms, because this book is to help people approach the Secret Doctrine. So I translated all terms using Blavatsky's definitions. And then there is a chapter where you can find the stanzas as they are originally. So going through the paraphrased, I call it, translation, may help you get a better idea about what they are about. And then when you are ready, you can read the actual stanzas as Blavatsky wrote them. So what we are going to do is to go rather quickly to have a bird's eye view of what the stanzas are talking about, so that you are more or less familiar with, what they are saying. We are not going to go into any details, but just give you the sense, the impression, the general view. So buckle up, because we are going for a ride. Since the beginning, before the beginning, that's something else that Blavatsky says. Most genesis of different traditions start at the beginning. Well, the stanzas start before the beginning of the cosmos. So there are actually a couple of stanzas before the beginning. The beginning of the cosmos is in the 3rd stanza. And that's very interesting that, they talk about before the beginning. Why? What's the purpose? But that before the beginning is the eternal state, which is the root, not only of the cosmos, but it's the root of our own being. And that's what we have to search for in meditation. That's what we are trying to discover, the root of our being. And that's why I think the stanzas start before the beginning. So let me read them, and I may do, make a few comments, otherwise I'll do it at the end of each stanza. But try to have a sense. Let us read and try to have a sense of what they say. Yes. So the first shloka, it says, the eternal parent the boundless infinitude, had slumbered once again for 7 eons. She rested wrapped in her ever-invisible robes, the spiritual essence of matter. This is describing that state before the beginning. Time was not. The illusion of past, present, and future lay asleep in the infinite bosom of timeless duration. Universal mind was not. It remained as an eternal possibility, for there were no celestial beings through whom it could be expressed. The 7 ways to the bliss of nirvana and liberation were not. The great causes of misery and illusion were not. For there was no one to produce and get snared by them. Only the darkness of the unknowable filled the boundless all. For Father Spirit, Mother Substance, and their Son, the universe, were once more one. The Son had not awakened for the new cycle and his evolutionary pilgrimage. The 7 sublime lords, the creative spirits, and the 7 truths had ceased to be. The universe, the Son of necessity, was immersed in absolute perfection, to be outbreathed by that which is and yet is not. Not was. The causes of existence had been done away with. The visible that was and the invisible that is rested in eternal non-being, the one being. Alone, the one form of existence stretched boundless, infinite, causeless, as if in dreamless sleep. And life pulsated unconscious in universal space, throughout that all presence which is sensed by the opened spiritual eye of the enlightened one. But where was the enlightened one when the universal soul was in that state of absolute being, which is also non-being, and the cosmic cycle was yet unborn? So you see that this describes a state in which there is absolute rest. And what the stanza, since this state cannot be described, what the stanza does is to tell you what things were not there. So there was only, see that it starts with the Eternal Mother. Blavatsky says that in all ancient traditions, the first thing that we can think of was depicted as feminine. The absolute is beyond genders. Remember, it's beyond dualities. So in the absolute, there is a synthesis of any polarities. But the first thing you can think of is conceived as feminine, just as the first thing that a human being perceives is the mother, in the uterus and at birth. So that mother is the space that at this point is slumbering once again, meaning this is a cycle. So the space is latent, and the space will be pregnant, the mother will be pregnant with a new cosmos when the energies we awakened, that in the Secret Doctrine is allegorically called the Father. So then it says there was no time, because Blavatsky explains time is actually an illusion happening in our consciousness and depends on the motion of consciousness. A fly that can move far faster than we can. The fly can perceive everything or the time, a fraction of time that we cannot perceive, because the fly is able to move at that speed. So when we move, for the fly, we are going in slow motion. Or when if you have been in an accident, you see that many times time seems to stop because your state of consciousness changes. So the experience of time, she says, is dependent on the state of consciousness. When you go beyond consciousness, you are beyond time. You are in the eternal. So then, basically what the stanza does is to describe all the fundamental principles that will give rise to the cosmos and say these were not yet manifested. As Michelle explained, meditation is the process of going back to that, going back from diversity into the unity of the absolute nature. So Michelle will show how you can use all this description as applied to your own consciousness, as a description of that state of consciousness that is beyond the mind. Then comes the second stanza. And here in the book, you have a synopsis where I go more into the technical aspect, what the different things in the stanzas mean. We don't have time for that, but my aim here is to give you a sense of what the stanzas talk about. So the second stanza is like the preparation for manifestation, but there is nothing happening yet. So Blavatsky says it's very similar to the first stanza, and to see the difference, you really need to use your intuition, she says. But perhaps we can give an example. One is when you are in deep sleep. The other one, the second one, is when you are waking up and coming to consciousness, but there is no external motion. Nobody can see that you are waking up. It's just that transition, that process, which is about to give rise to waking up. But this is applied to the cosmos. So it says, where were the builders of the universe, the luminous sons of the dawn of manifestation? In the unknown darkness, in their celestial perfection. Let me stop there. You see, we find the word perfect or perfection in both stanzas. Normally, we would think that the state of dissolution, the state where there is nothing in the universe, is a state that is less than the state where the universe is manifested. But the stanzas are saying this is the state of perfection. Manifestation is a state of imperfection. And this is what you discover in your practice of meditation. You start realizing that as productive and fun and sorrowful as our external life may be, when you get to that place of pure peace and presence, that state feels perfect. And that's the state in which the universe is when there is no manifestation, a state of perfection and unity and harmony. And then manifestation comes, and is the opportunity to produce development. Because Blavatsky said there are some beings that are frozen in perfection because they are beyond the level of evolution. So you can be in a state of perfection, but there is no development. So coming out of that perfect state, there is a process of development so that you can bring that perfection that is, let's say, passive in a sense, you can bring it into manifestation and see how perfect can you or how much you can reflect that perfection through matter, through the manifested cosmos. Anyway, so where were the builders? In their unknown darkness, in their celestial perfection. The producers of form, out of non-form, no form, from no form, the root of the world, the mother of the gods, and spirit substance, rested in the bliss of non-being. So you see here you have spirit substance, which are still one here. They will separate later. Where was the silence? Were the ears to sense it? No, there was neither silence nor sound, not save the ceaseless motion of the eternal breath, which now knows itself not. Remember, we talked about the great breath, that is this motion that is always there. And see that the stanza will start drawing these dualities, silence and sound, spirit and matter, form and no form. This is where the duality begins to, out of that unity, there is a polarization in that unity that will give rise to the duality between self, not self, male, female, positive, negative. But at this point, they are still one. It's like when a cell begins to separate, to divide, there is a polarization in the nucleus, but externally you still have one single cell. And then that will manifest eventually into two different cells. So it says, the hour had not yet struck. The ray of the ever darkness had not yet flashed into the cosmic germ. The mother lotus had not yet swollen. Her heart had not yet opened for the one ray to enter, and hence to fall as 3 into 4 in the lap of universal illusion. The 7 suns, the 7 planetary spirits, were not yet born from the web of light. Darkness alone was father-mother. You see, they are united still. The spirit substance, and the spirit substance was in darkness. The universe was still concealed in the divine thought of the Father and the divine bosom of the Mother. These two are the germ, and the germ is one. So throughout the stanza, you see the two which are still one. And the stanza is already telling you what is going to happen. The ray that flashes, that falls into the mother is germinated and swollen like the lotus flower, which is going to open. All this is allegorical language for cosmic principles that Blavatsky explains in the commentaries. And then we come to the stanza, the third one, where manifestation, the reawakening of the cosmos begins. So we are still in darkness, we are still in unity, but that unity began to generate two polarities. So the stanza says, the last vibration of the seventh eon thrills through infinitude. The mother swells, expanding from within without, like the bud of the lotus. That vibration, that last vibration of the period of rest, of sleep, the vibration sweeps along, touching with its swift wing simultaneously the whole universe. You see, this is what I was talking about, not from a center, but simultaneously. The expansion of the mother in the previous from within without, Blavatsky says this is not an expansion in space. This is actually talking about matter that is unmanifested and expands into manifestation. So the vibration sweeps along, touching with its swift wing simultaneously the whole universe and the germ that dwells in darkness. The darkness that breathes, moves over the slumbering waters of life, which is the primordial matter. And then darkness radiates light, which is the unmanifested logos. And light drops one solitary ray, the divine thought, into the primordial waters of the mother deep. The ray shoots through the virgin egg. Oh, did I touch anything? Sorry, those who are on Zoom, you have no problem there, but we have one. There is a problem, we have a problem in Houston.
This is what happens when the divine ray.
Yeah, it's a, I'm not ready for manifestation. Let's go back to darkness and silence. Okay, but meanwhile, let me say something while they. So you see, we have these two stanzas previous to manifestation, and then we have this third one that is going to begin the manifestation. And you are seeing that the space, the mother, is eternal, and the ray she says the ray that is the father, all symbolically. Blavatsky says the space is actually the Virgin Mother, which gives birth to the universe by herself as a virgin. That's why in all traditions, Egyptian and Greek and Christian, you have the idea of the virgin, because the vibration is intrinsic within space, in the mother. There is nothing really from outside that is coming and germinating the mother. So that's why the universe comes from the Virgin Mother, and the Father is an aspect of the Mother. It's the vibration that is in the. Remember that the space is the substance, and that substance is vibrating. So the substance is the Mother, the vibration is the Father, but the two are one. This is why the cosmos comes from the Virgin Mother. But the vibration is active or latent. The Mother is always there. And the Father, the vibration, is active or latent periodically. When it is latent, there is no universe. When the hour strikes, then the vibration sweeps along through the whole universe and produces the beginning of differentiation of matter, which will give rise to manifestation. So those are the essential symbols that you see at the beginning of the manifestation of the cosmos. Then we will continue with what happens when from darkness comes light. That light is the Father, is the ray, is what the germinating power. So then darkness radiates light, which is the unmanifested logos. And light drops one solitary ray, the divine thought, into the primordial waters of the mother deep. The ray shoots through the virgin egg, causing the eternal egg to thrill and drop the non-eternal periodic germ. The germ condenses into the egg of the world. So the first, when any system begins to be formed, it assumes a spherical kind of form. Blavatsky says these are very ancient stanzas, but from the very beginning, those who produced these stanzas were aware that the cosmic structures tend to be spherical. That's why they use the egg as an allegory. So then the three fall into the four. The three are the three aspects of consciousness. The four are the four aspects of matter, let's say. The radiant essence, the primordial cosmic matter, becomes seven inside, seven outside. This is the luminous egg, which in itself is a trinity. It curdles and spreads in milk-white curds throughout the depths of the mother space, the root that grows in the depths of the ocean of life. All this every phrase has a meaning, which she tries to explain in the Secret Doctrine. I say tries because there is so much meaning here that she doesn't explain everything. But you see what this is telling you, there is a preparation here. There is an egg that is being formed. And the egg is incubating something. So the egg is still not the birth of whatever is being incubated there, but it's the beginning, the gestation of that something. So here the stage is that matter is being activated by spirit, by the ray, and there is a period of gestation. Blavatsky compares this with the Hindu stages of creation, and she says this is the gestation of the gods, the first stage in manifestation. So the stanza says, the root of all things remains, the spiritual light remains, the curds of matter remain, and still the deity is one. So always going back, now we are entering into differentiation. You have the root, you have the matter, you have the motion, but they are all one. The root of life was in every drop of the ocean of immortality, and the ocean was radiant light, which was full of activity, fire, heat, and motion. When science describes the early stages of the universe, they describe it in this way. The first stage is a stage of heat, motion, so strong that matter cannot be combined. There is too much energy, and there is no possibility of structures to be formed. So this is what the shloka talks about here: fire, heat, and motion. Darkness, the absolute state, the absolute rest, vanished and was no more. It disappeared in its own essence, the body of fire and water, or father and mother. So that's the formation of the egg. Then there is the gestation of what is within the egg, and then there is the birth. The birth of what? The birth of the deity. So now we see that what was being gestated there was the Logos, the creative deity, the manifested God, let's say. Behold, O disciple, the radiant child of the tomb, the unparalleled refulgent glory, bright space, son of the dark unmanifested space, which emerges from the depths of the great dark waters, the undifferentiated substance. Normally in the Secret Doctrine, darkness is unmanifested, light is what is manifesting. It is the newly manifested deity. He shines forth as the sun. Here the stanza talks about the male aspect. There is a stanza later that talks about the female aspect of the deity. So he shines forth as the sun. He is the blazing divine dragon of wisdom. The one is four, and the four takes to itself three. The union produces seven primordial beings. So the divine, the one deity emanates seven rays that are the seven highest primordial celestial beings. You have in Christianity, for example, the seven angels facing the throne of God. In India, you have several sevens, the Prajapatis or the Manasaputras, etc. So the one is four, in whom there are and the union produces seven primordial beings, in whom are the second seven, which become 30, or the hosts and the multitudes of celestial beings. There will be another stanza talking about numbers, but basically this is talking about the emanation of different orders of celestial beings. There is the first seven, then there are the second seven. You can interpret this as seven within each seven, or a second hierarchy of septenary beings that the stanza will say these are the rulers of karma. We'll see all that. And then from there comes the 30. As I said, there is a stanza that goes more finely into numbers. But, it is interesting to see that in the stanzas later on, they say that from the 7, there is an intermediate state that is the 12, which are like in the 12 signs of the zodiac. Those are representing these 12 hierarchies, orders of celestial beings, as Blavatsky called them. And if you multiply 12 by 30, you get 360, that is the full circle, that is the totality. So I think that's why the shloka here mentions the 30. All this is very symbolic at the level of numerology. Then behold, now coming back to the one deity, behold him lifting the veil of reality and unfurling it from east to west. He shuts out the above, the realm of the ultimate reality, and leaves the below to be seen as the great illusion. See, in this image, you have you unfurl the curtain, And then you see on the stage the drama of illusion, of evolution. But this is an illusion. This is why it says, lifts the veil of reality, and now you see what is on stage, which is an illusion. It's a story. You know, that veil of reality that was homogeneous, dark, represents the real. And now you hide the real so that you can see the drama of evolution, which is an illusion in the special sense that illusion is used in these philosophies. Not that it doesn't exist, but it's just like an actor that plays a role, a character in a play. You engage in that, but that's not your real life. That's not your real nature. By engaging in this play, you display your skills, you have fun, you learn, you grow as an actor. But once that is over, you go back to your real life. So the absolute reality, for the time being, engages in this play, and throughout the play, certain things are developed. But this is always just a temporary illusion. Why this happens? You know, sometimes in Hinduism they say, well, it just happens for fun. Lila, they use the Sanskrit word. It's just the fun of the divine. The divine engages in this because it's fun. It's hard to take it when you see so much suffering in the world, but there is an aspect of that. Why does, people normally ask, why would the absolute engage in manifestation? They asked HPV, and she said, you know what, I'm not on speaking terms with the absolute, so you will have and go and ask him yourself. Ask it yourself. But anyway, why this happens, even the question why belongs to the mind. You know, if there is something that you do because it is your nature, there is no why. You know, suppose that somebody from another planet comes and they don't know what love is. And they see a mother sacrificing herself for the baby, not sleeping well, and taking care of the baby. And then this alien person would say, why are you doing this? What do you get out of that? This is only sacrifice on your part. And you say, I don't know, there is no why. If any why, love, or whatever you want to call it, the why is something that belongs to the mind. There are things that happen because it's just the very nature of that to happen. And only when we need a reason in order to do something that otherwise we would not do, we ask why. But when something is the expression of your very nature, there is no why. So why did this happen? Well, that question probably is the wrong question, as we were talking yesterday. There are some questions that have no answer because the question is wrong in itself, but we can ask it anyway. You know, it's important to meditate on this. Anyway, so the deity shuts out the above, the reality, so that the great illusion can be seen. You know, at the beginning of human evolution, most souls didn't want to engage in evolution. They were in this blissful state beyond the physical plane, and they were looking at the physical forms before attachment and desire was generated. And they were saying, why? Why would I want to go there? But it was the law of karma. But at the beginning, many souls, because they were still perceiving the unity, they were just not engaged with the human life. So the reality has to be veiled for the souls to engage with the illusion. Today, we are so much engaged that, we need to see the reality. But at the beginning of evolution, reality has to be covered because reality is always far more satisfying than the illusion. Only when we lose sight of reality, we get engaged in the illusion. And if we are attached to the illusion, it's only because we have lost sight of the real. When through meditation and spiritual exercises and spiritual living, we start having a glimpse of the real, it's very easy to let go of the illusion. But the deity has to shut out the above and leaves below to be seen as the great illusion. Then the deity marks the places for the shining ones, the stars. He turns the space of the spiritual plane into a shoreless sea of fire, the one manifested element into the great waters. So this is part of how the different planes will be formed. Where was the germ and where was now darkness? Where is the essence of the flame that burns in thy lamp, O disciple? The teacher asks. The germ is the unrevealed, abstract deity, and this is light, the white, brilliant sun of the dark, hidden Father. Light is called flame. At the beginning, the Secret Doctrine says there is light which is cold, before the stage of the heat and motion and all that. That light is probably just spiritual light, but when it generates friction when manifesting through matter, then heat comes up. So light is called flame, and flame is fire, and fire produces heat, which yields water, the water of life in the great mother, chaos. Chaos in the sense of primordial matter, like in the Greeks. A matter that has no structure, no form, therefore has a chaotic nature in that sense. And then, now that we have the manifested deity with the cosmic matter, with no form yet, then the deity in its two aspects, Father, Mother, spin a web whose upper end is fastened to spirit, the light of the one darkness, and the lower end to matter, its shadowy end. And this web is the universe, spun out of the two substances made in one, which is the spirit substance. So now the universe is being presented as a net, as a web, because every single atom is entangled, as we were saying yesterday, is connected. The universe is a web made of one substance that has two aspects, spirit and matter. The web expands when the breath of fire, the Father, is upon it. It contracts when the breath of the Mother touches it. Here, this may be counterintuitive. The contraction here is the creation of denser forms of matter. So when the influence of the Mother, the substance space, is on the atoms, then we have the creation of structures. When fire comes, the Father, then those structures dissolve and the atoms expand back into the source. Then the suns, the elements and forces, dissociate and scatter after the fire touches them, to return into their mother's bosom at the end of the great day, and we become one with her. So this is fast forwarding. The touch of the mother will make matter concrete. When the Father, at the end of the cycle of evolution, comes, will break up all the, and you can relate this to what happens in a solar system with the sun. The sun expands, the fire resolves all matter into the atomic forms, and then they are absorbed again in the bosom of the matter. But when the web is cooling, now that we are in manifestation, it becomes radiant, and the suns expand and contract through their own selves and hearts. They embrace infinitude. The idea is that expansion and contraction is everywhere in the cosmos. We know our heart does that. We know that the sun also has this pulsing. She says every atom has this rhythmical pulsing, or the stanza says. And then Father, Mother, the deity in its two aspects, sends Fohat, the cosmic energy, to harden the atoms, to make them more concrete, to generate material matter, because we are still at the level of spiritual matter here. Each is a part of the web of the universe, reflecting the self-existent Lord like a mirror. each becomes in turn a world. So that was the manifestation of the deity, when the deity is born. And now comes what we can call in the fourth stanza, kind of the emanation of the different gods. So the septenary hierarchies. Yes.
253.
Yeah.
So why don't we take a break and then you finish all the stanzas instead of. Yeah.
All right, let us take a break. But no, but I really want also to see the practical aspect. So
That's not what my talk said. So just finish the stanza.
okay. So shall we take a break now?
Take your meds out, get that coffee in, get the blood out of your legs.
In her own way.
7 days.
That's what it sounds like.
Okay, are we ready? Got a little sugar, a little caffeine, a little blood moving again.
You'll be able to rest for 7 eternities during the period of rest. Now we have to keep going.
Okay, so I'm going to forego my part this afternoon so Pablo can finish the other 4 stanzas, which I think are important. But I do want to show you a few things first that can be done on your own from the book. So this is chapters 18, 19, and 20 in the book, where Pablo, can you get my notes right there? Where Pablo's taken the stanzas, and this first part of the stanzas is, I just want to make sure I don't butcher it. What he's done here was he took the titles and the subtitles found in the contents of the Secret Doctrine, including the page headers that I mentioned. We're good to look at the page headers, and then it'll tell you what's on that page, so you can kind of frame your state of mind. And then he takes here, the second portion you'll see right there is Blavatsky's outline. And this is found at the end of the prologue. So it's just her outline of that part. And then the paraphrasing, which he's been reading. Now, what I was going to do this afternoon was go through the paraphrases and just kind of read them as a guided meditation so that you can, and obviously you can do this on your own, see what bubbles up. See what comes to you from reading these words, because like we've said, and like the Secret Doctrine says itself, each word is pregnant with meaning, with symbolism, and with the ability to explain both the cosmos and down to our own mind. And then the last part in here is the synopsis. And these are Pablo's words too. He offers this synopsis as a summary to the main concepts. So another thing, in case you're one that bypasses the preface of books, which I don't recommend to do in Pablo's books, because one of the things that's important to remember is context. How to read a book in context of the author's state of mind. So here, what we've done in this book to help with that is you can see here, these are bolded. All right, this is bolded. These are Blavatsky's words. We tried to put in bold all of Blavatsky's words and then put in regular font all of Pablo's words so that we could distinguish between her words and his words, because it goes back and forth. Okay?
Thank you. All right. So now we have the fourth stanza, that is the emanation of celestial beings. Blavatsky says this is one of the most difficult stanzas, and there are many things that she doesn't explain in detail because it is dealing with the numbers behind manifestation. My knowledge of this is quite limited, just enough to get a gist of what is here. We have Dos with us that is far more of an expert on this than I am. If you have any questions, he can tell you anything and everything about. Go say, why didn't HPV explain this? You tell me what this is. So, no pressure, no. All right. So the stanza, we saw in the previous one that there is a teacher there that interjects a comment, where is the essence of this, and where is the essence of the flame in your lamp? That has a meaning per se. This is part of a Hindu analogy that sometimes is used. But here we see another dialogue which comes from, most traditions have this idea of a golden age where the gods walked among men and women, people. And here we see something that these gods, enlightened beings, celestial beings, however we want to visualize that, where they are teaching, they are dictating, or they are communicating these stanzas. And that's the source of the stanzas of Dzyan. In the second volume, Blavatsky talks about this and how this information comes to us. So it starts with them saying, "Listen, ye sons of the earth, to your instructors, the sons of the primordial fire. Learn that there is neither first nor last, for all is one. Number issued from no number, which is the absolute." Remember, we say the absolute is like the zero, and all numbers come from zero because you have the positive and negative synthesized there. So learn that all is one, and then we have diversity numbers coming from the no number. Learn what we, who descended from the primordial seven celestial beings, we who are born from the primordial flame, have learned from our fathers. So these are pretty high beings who have learned from their fathers, presumably the primordial seven celestial beings, which are the highest intelligences in our system. From the effulgence of light, the ray of the ever-darkness, sprang in space the reawakened energies. You see, you have again reawakened. They were awakened before, they were in a state of rest, now they reawaken. These energies are the celestial beings also. The hierarchies of celestial beings. The one from the 0, the 6, and the 5. So you see the one from the 0, the 6, and the 5 form the number 1065. HPV talks a little about this and the connection to the name of Jehovah. I think she talks about, as I said, Dos knows everything about it. Then the stanza says, the 3, the 1, the 4, the 1, the 5, which this is the pi number, 3.1415927, something. That's all I know. Yeah, non-stop. And there is a little story, by the way, that HPV was writing a comment about this. And she was living with a person, Countess Watchmeister, who was helping her, keeping her health, taking care of her. And then the Countess goes to Blavatsky's room, and there are all these papers, that are just thrown around the room. And she's trying to write, and she says, no, this is not right. So she asked, I think it was the Countess, or it was HPV's niece. No, I think it was HPV's niece. Yeah, because she says, what is going on? And HPV said, I don't know, I'm trying to write this and the master keeps telling me it's wrong, and he's not telling me why. So, HPV wrote The Secret Doctrine in a state of meditation. She was in touch with some information and she was trying to translate this. She was not in a trance, she was always aware. This is what occultists can do. They raise their minds to the divine mind. But then she kept doing something wrong. And she tells Denise, do you know what pi is? And Denise said, yeah, these cakes. Oh, don't make a fool of yourself, she says. Pi in mathematics, because Denise was a teacher of mathematics. So then Denise tells her what it is and the number. HPV knew nothing of math. And then she says, that's it. That's where the mistake is. I was putting the dot, the decimal point in the wrong place. Now it makes sense. And then she could write it correctly. She couldn't see in whatever state of consciousness she was in, couldn't perceive that right. So anyway, this is the pi, which again is the circle, and this symbolizes all the celestial beings that are within what is called the ring pass not, within our system, and that cannot go beyond our system. The other deities, the 1065, seems to be higher and they are able to go beyond. Anyway, so the pi, the twice 7, if you add up this, it gives 14, which is the twice 7. And HPV says if you add this up, but take the 1 and the 0 as 10, then you have 21, and 21 is 3 times 7. So you can see that 7 is hidden here in these numbers. And these are the essences. These are all names of different hierarchies. The essences, the flames, the elements, the builders, the numbers, the formless, those with bodies, and the force of the divine man, the sum total. So the divine man would be our monad, and our monad contains the totality of all the powers in the different hierarchies of celestial beings, but they are latent. Part of what we are doing in evolution is activating, bringing from latency into power all these different energies that exist in us. And from the divine man, from the monad, emanated the forms, the sparks. The divine man, you can think of the monad or the celestial, like the Adam Kadmon of Kabbalah, the celestial man or human being. This is the archetype of a human being on the higher planes. And from the divine man emanated the forms, the sparks, the sacred animals, and the messengers of the sacred fathers within the holy 4 lower planes. Some of this we can explain, some we can't. HPV didn't say anything about this. And this was the army of the mother's voice, the divine septenary. So the mother is the mother of the gods also. So all these, there are some, Blavatsky says, some celestial beings that emanate before the father and the mother are separated. And these are beyond our system. But then there are all the divine beings that come from the mother, meaning when spirit and matter are separated. These are at different stages of evolution. So these are the mother's, the army of the mother's voice. The logos is the word, and the mother, the feminine aspect of the logos, is the voice. The voice is what brings the word into manifestation. So the mother is the one that is shaping the cosmos, just like the mother shapes the fetus. The feminine aspect of the logos is the one that shapes the cosmos. So the divine septenary, the sparks or monads, or divine sparks, in this case the sparks or the monads of the primordial 7, are subject to and servants of the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh of the primordial seven. So yeah, this is you see, you have to go in the context. These are a lower septenary hierarchy of celestial beings, which develop within the consciousness, the aura, however you want to put it, of the seven primordial beings. So all our monads, our divine spark, emanated through one of these seven primordial beings. This is what are called the rays, the seven rays. Therefore, our monads develop within the aura or atmosphere of one of these celestial beings. And this is the case for everything in the cosmos. The different animals, kind of animals, emanated through one of the seven rays, or different minerals, different vegetables. These sparks are called spheres, triangles, cubes, lines, and modelers, for thus stands the eternal change of causes of existence, the deity. So again, all these are different monadic beings, from celestial beings down to minerals. The deity, which is darkness, the boundless or the no number, and there is here a recap. Everything comes from the darkness, the no number, the primeval cause of existence, the spirit substance. Enclosed in the boundless circle of the absolute are the primeval ancient, the number, for he is one, probably the logos, the unmanifested logos, let's say. I didn't go into the different logos. There are different stages, unmanifested and then manifested logos. That's all detail that you can see in the book. Then the voice of the word, the spirit substance, the numbers, for he is 1 and 9. That's probably the manifested logos. And the formless square, that's the three aspects of the logos plus the matter, plus the cosmic substance. And these three within the boundless circle are the sacred form, and the 10 numbers are the subjective and formless universe. Then come the suns, the seven fighters, who are the spirits of the sacred planets. These are the planetary spirits of the seven planets in our solar system that are the oldest. Blavatsky says our Earth has its own planetary spirit, but is of a lower evolutionary degree. The seven planets of the ancients, she says, although the moon and the sun are included in the seven planets, they are really substitutes for two hidden planets. One is what the ancients call Vulcan, and then another planet that Blavatsky says is behind the moon, not behind in space, but in some ways unmanifested behind the moon, whatever that means. And those seven planetary spirits are of far higher evolution than the Earth. And that's why the ancients regarded those as sacred planets. So then come the suns, the seven fighters, who are the spirits of the sacred planets, and the one, the spirit of the sun, who is the eighth left out, and his breath, which is the light maker. In the Secret Doctrine, there is an explanation that at the beginning of the solar system, there are forces trying to avoid that, for the sun to absorb the planets that are being formed in the solar system. So this is why the sun is the eighth left out. These forces are trying to separate the sun, and so that it gives room to the formation of the planets in the solar system. Then come the second seven celestial beings, who are the recorders of karma, produced by the three, the logos, the triple logos, the divine thought, the mother's voice, and the manifested word. The rejected sun is one. The sun's sons are countless. Okay, we don't need to go into the details, but you see, this is a complex stanza, as Blavatsky said, and this, she says, is just a summary, but because that stanza is setting the numerological foundations of manifestation, like the science behind the science that we know of. Then the fifth stanza talks about Fohat, which is this creative energy, which the basic idea is this. In the divine mind, we have the plan for the cosmos. Now, this plan, all this is symbolic, allegorical. Blavatsky says all this language is allegorical. The plan may be the laws or the germs of what will become the cosmic laws. Where did these laws come from? You know, the scientists, when they talk about this idea that the fine-tuned universe, they say that the universe is the constants, you know, the charge of the electron and the strength of gravity and the velocity of expansion is all so finely tuned to produce life that statistically speaking, it's just crazy to think that this happened just randomly. Because if the electron, the charge, was just a little bit more than what it is, no matter would have been possible. Or if gravity is a little weaker, then expansion would have been too fast and no structures could form, etc., etc. With all the fundamental laws or principles or forces, they are just perfect. So this, in theosophy, is what we would call the ideas in the divine mind. The proportions, the laws, these all come from, you know, are a manifestation of the ideas in the laws, in the divine mind. Perhaps there are other systems with different laws, etc. And, you know, that's possible. This is how this particular cosmos came about. And so the idea I was saying is that we have the ideas in the divine mind. We have that's the cosmic ideation. We have the cosmic substance that is without form, without structure, just the raw material from which all the planes in the cosmos will happen. But then how are these ideas transferred into matter? How is matter shaped according to these ideas? The Secret Doctrine says that this happens by means of Fohat, this cosmic energy, is the one that shapes matter following the ideas in the divine mind. In the same way that our thoughts, you know, in the theosophical tradition, our thoughts produce thought forms. So when we think, there is a kind of mental substance that is beyond our senses. And the idea is that every time we think, there is a power in us that in Sanskrit they call it Kriya Shakti, the power of thought, so that every idea that happens in our consciousness, with this energy, produces a form outside of our consciousness. This is why Blavatsky says we are creative beings, just like the Logos is thinking, in quotation marks, is thinking and producing divine beings that generate the cosmos. Every time we think, we produce a thought form with an energy and an intention that produces results on the mental plane. So you can see there the reflection, so that everything that is being said about the Logos can be interpreted on a lower octave, so to say, about ourselves. So the Fohat is that idea, that energy, like the Kriya Shakti of the Logos. And this energy is mediated by celestial beings. So this is something else that the Secret Doctrine proposes. It says all laws in nature are mediated by intelligences. Now, there are different, they don't need to be human-like intelligences. We only understand when we say, you know, the animals have intelligence or consciousness. For a long time, scientists were reluctant to embrace that because they think of intelligence or consciousness in the human way. Okay, I don't see the lizard thinking as we do, so the lizard has no intelligence or no consciousness. Today, they have a far more fluid idea of consciousness, and many of them extend the idea. Before Descartes, the French philosopher, would say animals don't have any consciousness. They don't feel pain. When you hurt them and they, express their pain, this is just like the whirlings of a machine, that if you put something in the machine, you hear all this noise. It's not that the machine is conscious, it's just the mechanical noise. And they did believe that. Today, we are far ahead, although a long way still needed. But the idea in the theosophical tradition is that even the laws of nature are mediated by intelligent beings. Now, we see the laws of nature very regular, but so is, for example, illnesses. You can draw a graph when you get a virus or a bacteria. You can draw a graph of what is going to happen when, and this is predictable if all conditions, external conditions are the same. This is very predictable, so much so that early scientists thought that the illnesses were mechanical, what they call miasma. They didn't know about microorganisms at the time, and they thought this was just something mechanical. Then scientists discovered bacteria, viruses, and all that, and now we know that illnesses are mediated by living beings, and yet they follow a predictable pattern. So the idea is that all forces of nature, gravity and electromagnetism and all these things, are, Blavatsky says, the shadow on the physical plane of the activity of celestial beings. And closer to our understanding, we have all these traditions talking about nature spirits, for example, that are helping in the processes of nature. When a flower blooms, there are nature spirits facilitating that physical and chemical process. So that's the concept that underlies this stanza. So the 7 primordial beings are the first 7 breaths of the dragon of wisdom, the Logos. They, in turn, from their holy circumgerating breaths, you see, circumgerating is, this kind of motion. So you see that the primordial 7 beings, their breath is in a spiral, and they produce the fiery whirlwind Fohat. So you see how the primordial cosmic energy moves in spiral. And if you look at a graph of the motion of subatomic particles, they move also in spiral. They don't move just in a straight line. And the sun, as Maria was saying, also moves through space, forming a spiral with all the planets around. So the rotation around the sun and the electrons, around, of course, the motion is different, but let's say around the nucleus, there is in all our ways of understanding this, there is a nucleus, and then there is either a cloud around, or there is an actual motion in an orbit like in the planets. And all this comes from the fact that the original energy has that motion. This is why the whirling cross, the swastika that is used in Hinduism and Jainism and Buddhism forever, that unfortunately the Nazis spoiled, but this was with the Native Americans, with all cultures. The swastika, the whirling cross, is a symbol of this because of that rotatory motion. So the wisdom of the primordial 7 celestial beings becomes Fohat. It is through their wisdom that the cosmic energy shapes matter. So they can read, in quotation marks, the ideas in the divine mind, and their activity shapes matter according to the divine mind. This is, by the way, how Plato explains it. They say the contemplation of the one, in the contemplation of the one, you have these higher beings that see the archetypes, and then the cosmos is produced according to those archetypes. So the wisdom of the primordial seven becomes Fohat. They make of him the messenger of their will. He is the steed, and their thought is the rider. Fohat, the sweet son of the divine sons, whose sons are the recorders. These are the primordial seven, Fohat, and the second seven, who are the recorders of karma. There will be some about that. Runs circular errands again. He passes like lightning through the fiery clouds of the cosmic mists. You see this in the nebulas. You see. He takes 3 and 5 and 7 strides through the 7 planes above, the 7 planes below, the world to be. So there is a brief mention of the manifestation of the different planes that happen through Fohat. He lifts his voice and calls the innumerable sparks, the atoms, to join them together. He's their guiding spirit and leader. So here, if you see in the stanzas, the whole cosmic evolution is directed by Fohat. And Blavatsky said, on the physical plane, Fohat is electromagnetism. Now, there is no mention of gravity here. And Blavatsky addresses this, and she says, gravity is not a force in nature. Gravity is an effect of something else, but not a fundamental force in nature. This is actually what gravity is the problem by which we cannot unite relativity with quantum physics. Relativity postulates gravity as a function of space. The space gets bent, and that the fabric, the space-time fabric, and that's how relativity looks at gravity. Quantum physics is thinking of gravity as a force. In quantum physics, all forces have their carrier, a particle, let's call it. So they are looking for the graviton, which would be the particle that carries gravity, and they cannot find it. They have found particles for the other 3 forces of nature, which are, the 3 of them are connected to electromagnetism and not for gravity. So Blavatsky says in the Secret Doctrine, there is no gravity as a force. It's a secondary effect. And in the stanzas, you see that the force, in normal cosmology today, gravity has a main place in how things happen. In the stanzas, there is no mention of gravity. All is led by Fohat as electromagnetism. And little by little, scientists, because it's really hard to measure electromagnetic fields out in space, but little by little, they are beginning to recognize that electromagnetism is essential. All their idea of dark matter is because the equations just don't work. You need something that generates more gravity than what we can see there, because gravity is not enough to explain the generation of galaxies, the motion, etc. So they say there must be more matter producing more gravity that we cannot see, and they call that dark matter. I think that matter, I may be completely wrong, this is just a speculation, but I think dark matter doesn't really exist. It's just that they are not recognizing the role of electromagnetism in the formation of the cosmos. If the stanzas are right, science will come to see more and more how electromagnetism is really leading the way to the creation of cosmic structures. All right, so he's their guiding spirit and leader. When he commences work, he separates the sparks of the lower kingdom, the mineral atoms, that float and thrill with joy in their radiant dwellings, the gaseous clouds, and forms therewith the germs of the wheels, the worlds in the becoming. He places them in the 6 directions of space and one in the middle, the central wheel. We can go into that. That has to do with the planetary chains. Fohat traces spiral lines to unite the 6th plane to the 7th, the crown, thus conjoining the first differentiation with the ever unconditioned reality. An army of the sons of light stands at each angle to watch over the evolutionary processes. and the recorders of karma stand in the middle wheel. So here there is a reference to all this is being ruled by karma. The first manifested plane is now the second plane or world. Then the divine formless universe of thought reflects itself in the third, the intellectual world, the shadowy world of primal form, the first garment of the parentless. This is all about the different planes. So Fohat generates the first 3 planes, then the 5 planes, and then lastly the 7 planes. So we have the first 3, now comes 2 more, the first 5. So Fohat takes 5 strides encompassing the 5 higher planes and builds a winged wheel at each corner of the square for the 4 holy ones, the assistant of the recorders of karma, and their hosts. The recorders circumscribe the triangle, the first vertical line, the cube, the second vertical line, and the pentacle, again the pi, within the circle. It is called ring pass not. It separates the world of pure spirit from that of matter for those celestial beings who descend and ascend, and those monads who, during the eon, are progressing toward the great day be with us, when everything returns to the One. Thus were formed the formless world and the world of forms. From one light, 7 lights. From each of the 7, 7 times 7 lights. The wheels watch the ring. These are all cycles. And so we come to the last 2 stanzas. We talk about the evolution of human beings. Again, I'm going to go, this is, as I said, it's a lot to try to even read the 7 stanzas at once, but we don't have time. It's just for you to have a sense of more or less what they are and what they talk about. So the last 2. By the power of the Mother of Mercy and Knowledge, the female aspect of the Logos, residing in the melodious heaven of sound, Fohat, the son of the suns, calls forth from the lower abyss of chaos the elusive form of our universe and the 7 elements. So we are now going to the lowest plane and the formation on the physical plane. And you see here the mother is mentioned. Blavatsky translates from a stanza that had been translated into Chinese, and she mentions Kuan Yin because she says Kuan Yin is the only tradition that is alive today that has a similar concept to the female aspect of the Logos as it is in the esoteric philosophy is Kuan Yin. This is not quite like the Mother Mary. This is not quite like the consorts in Hinduism of Shiva and Brahma. She says of all the different female deities, Kuan Yin is the one that gets closest to the conception in the esoteric philosophy. And this is why she says I translated from the Chinese translation of them. So the swift and radiant sun, radiant one, Fohat, produces 7 centers of undifferentiated matter. These are the Laya centers, these maybe black holes, which will generate the different planets or galaxies, etc. The 7 centers of undifferentiated matter, against which none will prevail till the great day be with us. That's the day where everything comes back to oneness. So these black holes are eternal, apparently, or these Laya centers. And the seeds of the universe seeds the universe on these eternal foundations, filling it with the elementary germs. So now there are 7 elements that form the seven planes. Blavatsky says there are only 4 elements that are manifested, and 1 is in the process of being manifested. We have in traditional, earth, water, air, fire, and then there is ether, that is an element that is in the process of manifesting. So this is what the shloka says. Of the 7 elements, first 1 is manifested and 6 are concealed. Then 2 manifested, 5 concealed. 3 manifested, 4 concealed. 4 produced, 3 hidden. Now 4 and 1 fraction are revealed. This is our cycle. Right now, 4 are revealed and 1 is in the process of being revealed. And 2.5 concealed. 6 to be manifested, 1 laid aside. The highest element will not manifest. Lastly, 7 small wheels revolving, 1 globe giving birth to the other, thus forming our planetary chain. Again, that's a whole concept there of the planetary chains. We cannot go into it. And then Fohat, electromagnetism, builds them in the likeness of all their worlds, placing them on the imperishable centers, on these Laya centers of undifferentiated matter. How does he build them? And this is quite a cosmological. I did a talk comparing these stages with the current theory of how planets are formed, and it's quite similar. He collects the fiery dust, he makes balls of fires, runs through them and round them, infusing life thereinto, then sets them in motion, some one way, some the other way. In our solar system, we have some planets that rotate in a way or in the opposite way. They are cold, he makes them hot. They are dry, he makes them moist. They shine, he fans and cools them. Thus acts Fohat from one twilight to the other for 7 eons. And then the older worlds ran cycles of involution and evolution. The mother spawn filled the whole cosmos. There were battles fought between the creators and the destroyers, and battles fought for space, the germ of the world appearing and reappearing. Part of the explanation of this is when the solar system is being formed, there are collisions between different proto-planets, and this is the war in heaven. There is a chaotic stage until the planets get formed and established in their own orbits. Make thy calculations of O disciple, if thou wouldst learn the correct age of thy small wheel, the planetary chain. Its 4th spoke is our Mother Earth. Reach the 4th initiation on the path of knowledge that leads to nirvana, and thou shalt comprehend, for thou shalt see. So this is about just how the age of our world. And the last one is when now we have the planet formed and now life begins to develop. Behold the beginning of sentient, formless life. At the beginning, when the planet was volcanic in nature, etc., life was already beginning to develop there, but not physical life yet. Life comes from the higher planes manifesting last on the physical plane. That's why it's formless life. The hierarchy of creative powers on earth. First, the divine vehicle, the one from the mother spirit, then the spiritual, the second order of celestial beings, again the 3 from the one, the triads, the 4 from the one, the nursery of human souls. This is the hierarchy of monads to which we belong. Then the 5, from which the 3, 5, and 7. These are the threefold and the fourfold downward, the mind-born sons of the First Lord, the shining 7 who are the builders. Blavatsky explains more of this in the 2nd volume of the Secret Doctrine. It is they who are thou, me, him, O disciple, they who watch over thee and thy mother earth. This is about we are emanations of celestial beings, and those celestial beings are guiding human evolution. The one ray of the divine multiplies the smaller rays, the celestial hierarchies. Through the countless rays proceeds the life ray, our divine spark, the monad. This will be the common thread running through many beads, the recurring incarnation. So you as the monad are the thread on which all the different incarnations are, strung. Life precedes form, and life survives the last atom of the body. When the monad becomes two, the threefold appears, the immortal spiritual triad, and the three are linked into one, and it is our thread or disciple. This is the higher triad, Atma Buddhi Manas, the heart of the sevenfold man. It is the root that never dies, the three-tongued flame of the 4 weeks, which is the fourfold personality, the 4 lower principles. The wicks draw from the three-tongued flames from our monad, which were shot out by the 7 celestial beings, the 7 rays, who are their flames. These manifestations are like the multiple beams and sparks of one moon reflected in the running waves of the rivers of earth. So all the rays that are our monads come from the one light. The soul spark hangs from the spirit flame by the finest thread of Fohat. It journeys through the 7 worlds of illusion. It stops in the first kingdom, and it is a metal and a stone. The divine spark begins in the mineral kingdom. It passes into the second, and behold, the plant. The plant whirls through 7 changes and becomes a sacred animal. And from the combined attributes of all these kingdoms, man the thinker is formed. Who forms him? The 7 lives and the one life. And who completes them? The fivefold spirits. And who perfects the last body? The immortal beings, spirit falling into matter, and the lords of the moon. This is explained in the second volume. At the 4th round of life and being, cycling through the 7 wheels, the celestial sons are told to create their images. These are our souls to create bodies. 1/3 refuses, 2/3 obey. The karmic curse is pronounced. The rebels will be born in the 4th human civilization, suffer and cause suffering. This is the first war. So there was a group of souls that said, no way I'm going to incarnate. I want to stay here in the bliss of the inner place. And that messed up an aspect of evolution. Then they were forced to incarnate in lower forms, which were not receptive to the spiritual, and that is the source of evil in humanity. But that's a whole story that she deals with in the second volume. So from the firstborn, the primitive human, the thread between the immortal silent watcher, our spiritual spark, and his shadow, the body, from the beginning becomes stronger and more radiant with every incarnation. The dawning sunlight has changed into the noonday glory when enlightenment comes. This is thy present cycle, said the flame to the spark, the spirit to the soul, or the body incarnated. Thou art myself, my image and my shadow. I have clothed myself in thee, and though thou art my vehicle to the day be with us, when thou shalt re-become myself and others, thyself and me, the unity again. Then the celestial builders, having donned their first clothing, descend on radiant earth to reign over men who are themselves. And that's the incarnation of the gods or enlightened beings to help early humanity to develop culture, etc. So this is, Blavatsky finishes this by saying, and thus closes the first book of the Secret Doctrine. So there is a second volume that I don't deal with in this book that talks about the evolution of humanity. But here you have, bird eye view of what the stanzas are. Now you can say, I read all the stanzas in volume 1, and more or less have a sense of what they say. Yes.
One question and one suggestion. The question is the forehead the same as the graviton?
I don't think so, because, is forehead the same as the graviton?
That particle that are in that.
Yeah.
There is
Yeah, because Blavatsky, unless we are talking about, some scientists are trying to look into an electromagnetic version of gravity. If that can be worked out, because so far it hasn't, then yes, perhaps. But when Blavatsky talks about Foucault, she talks about electromagnetism. On the physical, Foucault manifests in different ways on different planes. On the physical plane is electromagnetism. So of the four fundamental forces, we have electromagnetism, and then we have the weak and the strong forces, which I have read, you know, better than I did, but I have read that they are forms of electromagnetism. So if this is confirmed, then we have three of these fundamental forces that come from electromagnetism. Gravity is the only one that is left that we don't know what it is. If gravity can be framed on an electromagnetic basis, then we will have the four fundamental forces derived from Foucault as electromagnetism. And, you know, if there is a particle, a magnetic particle, I don't know how that would say, how that would be in quantum physics. To me, the simplest explanation would be there are only three forces in nature. Gravity has not a particle because it's not a force, and gravity is just the secondary effects of the interaction of electromagnetism in ways that we don't know yet. But that would be a speculation.
And my suggestion is, I mean, I think you've done a very nice job in sort of putting this in simpler terms that is easier to understand. But I was wondering, maybe take it to the next phase by using a graphical designer, and maybe some of the things that are described here, give you some images or some graphics in order to make it more comprehensive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the book is full of diagrams, but that is in the part where we examine the concepts. This I just read the description, but diagrams, whenever you study the Secret Doctrine, get a pad, a pen, and start drawing diagrams, because it's the only way you can. So yes, the book is full of diagrams. The stanzas, I didn't go too deep in the stanzas because that's a more advanced study. With this book, I want to bring people to approach the Secret Doctrine. I did a synopsis, as Michelle showed, of each stanza, explaining the basic concepts there, so that after this book, the person says, okay, now I feel like I can go to the Secret Doctrine. In the future, at some point, I want to write more of a book on the concepts in the stanzas of Dzyan. I did a class, 12 classes on the stanzas of Volume 1, and then, yes, I used a lot of graphics there.
Because that would help to represent this process. It's a series of processes that I'm being described.
Mm-hmm.
It would be helpful that together with the text, we have some representation of the
Yeah,
processes
absolutely.
that are more comprehensible.
Absolutely. And if you like this, as you study, draw diagrams, and they can be helpful to many people. That's what, we want to encourage each of you to work with this, to get to your own ideas, your own diagrams. This is how we grow in the understanding of the Secret Doctrine. I didn't just woke up and just understood all of this. I learned from many people, from their thoughts, from their work, including us and many others. And, other people learn from all of us. So this is how collectively in the Theosophical Society, we get to a better understanding of this. So your contribution is very important. Why did you put HPV there?
I was going to look for some diagrams that I could find.
Yeah. That's a friend of ours draw HPV there from a picture. That, at that time they didn't smile in the pictures. You see HPV always, well, they didn't smile, mainly because they had to stay still for a long time. It's not like, but yeah. Yes, you will see in the book a lot of diagrams. Is there... Okay. All right, that's it. Yes. Oh, yeah, if you have, what time is it?
Well, we have to get ready for the picture.
Yes.
We have the question and answer session.
Okay. Let's just attend this and then we'll will.
So has anybody done any studies that correlate the gods in the Greek mythology with those elements, entities mentioned in stanza 4?
Yeah, several people, in the history of the society, but today Martin Liederman, he lives in LA. He's a theosophist that loves Plato, the Neoplatonists, and the Greeks, and he often connects and relates. He loves the Secret Doctrine too, so he often connects Greek mythology with the Secret Doctrine. So yes, we are going to have
Dustin, you do something with Greek
letters? Yeah, Dos translated the stanzas into Greek, back into Greek, worked out the numbers, the numerology, and found out some hidden information in the stanzas. You can tell us a little?
That's a pretty good summary.
Okay.
You have the idea that shows up in a lot of traditions that, what was this language before we had human language? One thing that's been said is it's numbers. So there's a mathematical, perhaps, basis for all of the, for all of the alphabets, when virtually every civilization thinks that their alphabet came from a divine source, and the numbers are associated with the letters. Anyway, I'm just going to say that the stanzas of Dzyan may very well come from numerical analysis, and like what the Hebrews called gematria, and what the Greeks called isosephia. So if anybody wants to look any more into that, I can refer you to.
Yes. And in connection to mythology, I don't know that you did anything with mythology, Greek mythology in particular, no? Martin Liederman, in Crotona, we are going to have, when is it? A Secret Doctrine Forum.
The end of October, 26 to 29.
Yeah, at the end of October, it will be also online. We will explore stanzas 4 and 5. Martin Liederman will be part of the speakers. You are all invited to participate in that program, and you can get in touch with Martin Liederman if you are interested in that. All right, so yes, since there is a question and answer session at night and we have the picture, we can stop here and then bring all your questions and discussions for tonight.